So hey guys, this is a special video where I will be covering all the gastrointestinal system except the large intestine and the appendix. The reason I am covering this in one video because all the gastrointestinal system slides are of 4-layer structure and luminal. So how to differentiate between it? So basically now we will discuss this slide, this first one. So this slide basically shows us this is a luminal structure. Okay, here it is a lumen, this is the luminal side, this is the serosal side. Okay, and it is a 4-layer structure. So this is the like mucosa, this is the submucosa, here we can see the muscularis, and if we further extend this slide on this side we can see the serosal layer too. This is the lumen. Okay, so this is a non-keratinized lumen, and the epithelium we can see this is the stratified epithelium. So non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. Okay, then further in the submucosa, so in the submucosa we can see some glands. So these are the mucus glands, as these are lightly stained. Okay, now further going we can see the muscularis layer. Okay, so muscles are like these are the striated muscles. Okay, majorly striated muscles, as we can't see any circular muscle or any like smooth muscles. Okay, these are the striated muscles. Then if we go beyond this we can see some smooth muscles. Okay, then combining all the characteristics, the luminal structure, then we have the 4-layer structure, the mucosa, submucosa, muscularis and this serosa, the 4-layer structure. And lining epithelium is non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium, non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. Okay, then we can see some submucosal glands. Okay, so these two feature you must remember because these are the most important feature in this slide. Okay, the reason to remember these feature will be understood by you when you complete all the GIT series. Okay, so this slide corresponds to the slide of esophagus. So you can be confused between esophagus and the duodenum because of the I mentioned that the submucosal glands are present, but remember I have said also in esophagus that is non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. Okay, but in case of duodenum it is simple columnar epithelium with goblet cells. Okay, so the epithelium is important as well as the submucosal gland for esophagus. Okay, this slide is completed. Going further to this slide. So in this slide we can see that it is also a luminal structure. The lumen is on this slide and the serosal surface is on this side. Okay, if we shift the slide we can see the serosal surface. Now tell me one thing, we can see some invasion in this slide. Okay, on the mucosal surface. So these are the pits. Okay, and to be very specific, these are the gastric pits. Okay, so we should note down this, there are gastric pits present. And the epithelium. Okay, so epithelium here is simple columnar epithelium. In this slide we can't really make out which is the epithelium, but I will tell you this is the simple columnar epithelium. So let us try to see where we can see simple columnar. So in this area we can see some simple columnar cells. Okay, then we have the submucosal surface. Okay, we can't really differentiate between the mucosa and submucosa, but if we zoom this slide we can see there's a demarcation. Okay, a little demarcation which separates the submucosa and the mucosa. Then we can see muscular layer. So this whole is the muscular layer. Okay, including this. Now we have the oblique muscles. These are the oblique muscles. Okay, the striated but oblique section. Then we have the circular muscles. Okay, so innermost oblique, then middle is the circular. And further if we shift this slide we can see there are the outer longitudinal muscles too. Okay, and this slide is not well stained, but if it is a well stained slide we can see there are long tubular glands, specifically the fundic glands, which are bluish and pinkish in color. The bluish part represent the chief cells and pinkish part represent the polygonal parietal cell. But remember, this gastric pits and simple columnar, the epithelium as well as one special feature is very important. So this slide, it is of stomach or the fundus region. So done with this slide. So in this slide we have the non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium and the submucosal gland as a characteristic feature in esophagus. The characteristic feature in stomach fundus is gastric pits and the epithelium is simple columnar. Further heading towards the next slide. Now this slide also is a 4-layer structure with lumen. So this is the luminal side and this is the serosa. Okay. Now we can see there are some glands which are extended till the extended beyond the submucosa and the muscularis layer. So muscularis layer, basically here we can see this is the muscle layer. Okay. Further we can see these are the glands which are extended till the submucosa. Okay. Now these are the deep gastric pits. Okay. Let me just write it. Deep gastric pits. Okay. Then we have some glands. Okay, let me just highlight these glands. So these are the glands which are extended beyond the muscle layer and all. So these are the deep pyloric glands. Okay, deep pyloric glands, and these generally come under the lamina propria. Okay, and then the theoretical part, there is a 2/3 duct system and 1/3 is the secretory part of this deep pyloric glands. Okay, and further going, this is the thickened circular smooth muscle layer. Okay, let me just highlight this here. Okay, so this is the thickened circular muscle layer. We can also see in between somewhere. Okay, this one, then this one. Okay, I can see this one, this much circular muscle areas only. This is the major one. Okay, so circular muscle, deep pyloric glands. So we have the important part, the deep pyloric glands, and the I forgot to mention the epithelium. It is simple columnar. Okay, so epithelium is simple columnar with the characteristic feature is deep pyloric glands. So these are the deep pyloric glands. Okay, so this one, these are also the extended glands. Okay, so this is the slide of pyloric region of the stomach. Okay, now further heading towards the next slide. So this slide, in this slide we can see it is a luminal structure with the lumen facing this side and then the serosal area facing this side. Okay, so 4-layered structure, luminal structure. Now the lining epithelium. So in this structure we can see the lining epithelium as simple columnar epithelium, and I will also show you the simple columnar epithelium. Okay, now see very closely. So this is one area and lining this area is a dark layer. Okay, the dark layer I will just highlight it. So this is the inner aspect of the dark layer, this is the outer aspect of the dark layer. Okay, so this is the dark layer, and if we the quality is not too high, but if we see, we can see this epithelium. This is the simple columnar epithelium. Okay, so lining epithelium is simple columnar. Now this is the mucosa, this is the submucosa, this is the muscularis, and further we can see the serosa. If we shift the slide, now there are many glands which are seen in the submucosa. So let me just write it, submucosal glands, and just highlight this submucosal gland with the lining epithelium, simple columnar. And we also have seen submucosal gland in esophagus, but the epithelium was non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium, and here it is submucosal gland with simple columnar epithelium. So this is the characteristic feature of the slide of duodenum. So remember, the lining epithelium should be simple columnar and the submucosal gland must be present. This is the duodenal slide. Heading towards the next slide. Okay. Before discussing this slide, I will just discuss this slide. Okay, I will tell you the reason why. So this slide seems to a bit clustered and bit dirty and all, but this is a very easy slide in gastrointestinal tract system. Now this is the luminal surface, okay, this, and here comes the serosal surface. Okay, now in this structure we can see a 4-layer structure. So basically here comes the mucosa a bit ahead of it, then the submucosa. Okay, and then we can also see there are some structure in the submucosa, this round structure, clustered structure. Here is the muscularis layer, and if you further slide this, like shift this slide, we can see the serosa. Okay, now tell me one thing. We can see some new structures in the submucosa and the lamina propria. Okay, so this circular structure, these are the lymphoid follicles. So let me just write, there are lymphoid follicles in submucosa and lamina propria. So if you see the lymphoid follicles in submucosa and the lamina propria, this is the most characteristic feature of the slide of ileum. Okay. Further describing this slide, we can also see that the lining epithelium, it is the striated border columnar epithelium. Okay, so striated columnar epithelium. Okay, and in some books we can also find that the duodenum is also striated. Better write it as striated for safer side. Okay, striated columnar epithelium. Like in the slide we can see one layer of columnar epithelium as I have seen. See this one, but in some books it is mentioned as striated columnar, so we will write it as striated columnar. And okay, so lymphoid follicles with lining epithelium as striated columnar epithelium, 4-layered structure with lumen, it is the ileum. Now come to this slide. There are no submucosal gland. Okay, no submucosal gland. It is a 4-layer structure, but and also lumen. Okay, first layer, second layer, muscularis layer, this is also muscularis layer, and the serosal layer. But we can't see any submucosal gland, we can't see any lymphoid follicles, so no such special feature is present. Okay, further coming to the comment on the lining epithelium, it is also striated border columnar epithelium. Striated border columnar epithelium. Okay, and further going with this slide, we can also comment that there are goblet cells also present. Okay, so this is the GIT structure. So goblet cells are present everywhere, in the duodenum, in the jejunum, in the ileum too. Okay, now we can see some lymphoid follicles. Okay, so I will just give the lymphoid follicles marking. So basically lymphoid follicles are aggregate. So this one, okay, and this one, but they are randomly arranged, so they can't be the ileum. Ileum has a typical circular pattern like this one. Okay, so these are the typical circular pattern, but here there are not typical circular pattern, they are scattered everywhere in the lamina propria. Okay, there are evaginations. Okay, so basically there are absence of Brunner's gland. Brunner's are the submucosal gland present in the duodenum, and the lymphoid follicles are also absent. And I forgot that these lymphoid follicles are known as Pierce patches. Okay, Pierce patches and the duodenum, the submucosal gland are also known as Brunner's gland. So absence of Brunner's gland and absence of Pierce patches, but striated border columnar epithelium with 4-layer structure and a lumen. This slide is of jejunum. So you should rule out the slide from of the small intestine. This jejunum slide you have to rule out by duodenum and ileum. We can see some lymphoid follicles, 4-layer structure, luminal structure, and also the muscles are seen. Then striated border columnar epithelium with goblet cells is seen, but this should be ruled out from both these slides. And this was all about the gastrointestinal system. We will cover large intestine and appendix in the further video. Thank you.